Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today on this lovely Friday. Depending on where you are, I happen to be here in Toronto, Canada, where it's chilly and gray. And I have an amazing guest joining me today, Cory Warfield. And Cory is in, where exactly are you in?
So I'm in the historic neighborhood of Vila Isabel, but more generally, this is Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. So I'm in the southern hemisphere where we're just getting into the summer season, and it's hot.
It's hot. So Cory and I, we were just laughing because here I am in my sweaters and I'm freezing, and he's meanwhile got a fan, on him, and he's very very hot right now because I think you said it was about in Fahrenheit over 90 degrees right now where you are, and I'm like, oh, that would be so nice. So I'm jealous. So let me introduce my guest a little bit more formally, Cory, who I have known for many years. But Cory's background, he's a serial entrepreneur, early stage executive. He's a podcast host. He has an AI newsletter. He's a co-founder. But most importantly, what we're going to talk about today is he's a LinkedIn influencer and a LinkedIn coach. Cory has almost 500,000 followers, and he works really specifically in the area of understanding how to create impact on LinkedIn. He's originally from Evanston, Illinois, and has spent over a decade in the restaurant industry. And I think this is one of the things that I love about Cory so much is he takes everything he does and learns lessons from it. That background in working in the restaurant industry set up his first company. That's where that came from. But it's also how he approaches everything he does. Because what Cory does better than anyone I know is he approaches everything through the lens of service. How can we best serve the audiences who we are, that we're addressing? And, if only all people on social media had that orientation and not the me orientation, I think would be a better place. So please join me in welcoming Cory, and we'll get started. Cory, welcome.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here, and I've loved not only knowing you, working with you for years, but I love seeing the progression. So LinkedIn is the perfect place for what you do, and I imagine many people watching right now are leveraging LinkedIn in a number of ways. And we're going to see if we can crack the code and take it a couple steps deeper than most people understand LinkedIn today.
Absolutely. When I first met Cory, and I'm trying to remember, I think it was in the fall of 2020. And so again, if we all think back to those early days of the pandemic, we were all a bit shocked and disoriented and still trying to figure out what this world was looking like. And I was on a call, and I remember it vividly. It was a call. I had gotten invited to a bit of a networking call through somebody I knew out of Silicon Valley, and she had invited me. And, here we were, I think maybe 8 or 10 people all on a Zoom call, talking. And Cory shows up, and he was a little bit late for the call, if I remember. And, we were sort of just getting into it. And I remember looking at Cory and thinking, oh, I wonder who Cory is. And he came in, he was clearly very busy. He was on his cell phone. And I believe he was in a stairwell. And he apologized to everyone, saying he was between meetings and he really wanted to make sure he was on this call. And so the meeting went on, and again, this was the early days of the pandemic, and so we were all trying to not only meet each other but find ways in which to support each other because all of our businesses had been impacted. And Cory talked a little bit about his work on LinkedIn, but I remember leaving that call and thinking, who was that? I need to know him. And I don't know why I need to know him because I'm not fully sure what he does, but I think I need to know him. And I reached out to him on email saying, Cory, I'd love to have a conversation. And we jumped on a call, and I think that call, which was scheduled for a half an hour, probably lasted an hour and a half. And by the end of it, I knew that I needed to be on LinkedIn, which I wasn't, because at the time I might have had 2 or 3,000 followers. Um, And B, I knew that I needed Cory as my coach. And so we started doing some work together. And he took me from, like I said, a couple of thousand followers to today over 133,000 followers. And it blows me away that all of you want to follow me, and actually how I feel like I know so many of you because of the way in which Cory has taught me how to work on LinkedIn. And so I really wanted to bring him in, not only as my coach, but as somebody who is an absolute expert in this platform and what it takes to actually grow your membership and grow your followership. And not because we just need followers for the sake of having followers, but having followers and having a community, because that's how I view all of you who follow me, building a community, because what we do, it's what I was doing on that call in those early days. It was creating a community who supports and amplifies my message, and I support and amplify theirs. And so that's what I learned from Cory. So I'm going to hand it over to him and say, Cory, in the years that we've been working together and the work that we've done together, I know you've seen lots of changes on LinkedIn. I know you've seen many, many, many more influencers come and some go. And I'd love to hear from you. Just, what are your perspectives? How do you use this platform? Why do you use this platform? And what's the most effective way to actually gain followership?
Amazing. So, I think to put it the most simply, although it really isn't this simplistic, it's the law of reciprocity. So, the easy ways to kind of articulate that would be showing up all the time, being yourself, not expecting everything to come inbound by way of attention, right? In other words, don't expect everyone to care who you are and what you're doing just because you show up and say, hey, this is me, look at me, here's what I'm all about, right? So when LinkedIn is viewed more as a networking site, and when you show up to network, it changes the entire landscape on LinkedIn. And I think the easiest way to really kind of growth hack and leverage LinkedIn is to understand that your profile can network on your behalf. Right. So the other day I posted something that I thought was really cool, and I brought people into the conversation rather than say, hey, I'm Cory, I think this is cool, stop what you're doing and listen to me. But so I brought people into the conversation. I kind of talked about this cool thing, which is a guy flying in a rocket suit in Dubai. And then I kind of even drew some parallels to some of the stuff that I care about and do professionally right now. And I think it's been 3 days, and it's not atypical, but it's a good post. It's got 300,000 or 400,000 views right now. It's got 3,000 or more people that have liked the post. Thousands of people have commented, shared the post, and it's not a vanity metric, right? I don't have any stock in that company, although often I'll mention companies that are giving me either pieces of equity or paying me to talk about them. But more so than that, that's 350,000, call it, thousand people in the last few days that via that post have seen my headline. And if you're watching this, you can minimize and you can look at my headline if you care. But right now it says my reach could be yours too. I think 3 million views a month, and that's substantially lower than the real number. To my 490,000 followers plus, which again the number is a bit higher than that. But I like to have so much intentionality in my brand that I use to position myself that I'm going to claim less views and less followers and less reach than I even have. Because if someone sees that and thinks that's potentially beneficial, they can scroll down and see I have more followers and I get more engagement even than that. And the people that I work with and support, are all getting the same. So everything about the way my profile is structured, from the beginning of the headline to bring people there to my profile to see the rest of it, and then my banner. For the right people, once they've seen those two, to say, let me learn a little bit more about not this company, not this offering, not this industry, but this person, being Cory, right? So they're going to scroll halfway down the profile to your about section. And once you get them to your about section, they want to know about you. Once they feel like they know you, if they want to keep going further in this networking rendezvous, they can scroll a bit further down and see where you've worked, what you've done, right? Go to your recommendations, who have you worked with, what do they have to say about you? Go to your skills, what are you great at, who else is not afraid to publicly say that you're great about them? right? And so the idea is, by the time the right person that gets what you do, why you do it, how it can benefit them, that might have budget and opportunity for your offering, whatever that might be, right? They're now through your profile. They go back up, and you've got this blue button right under your name that's a call to action with the link, and they can book time on your calendar. They can book, a product demo. They can book a discovery call, and that's how it should work. And thank God it does. First of all, so I posted a couple of days ago. 300,000 people saw it. I had a couple dozen people reach out to me asking how my reach could be theirs. Right? Does that mean you'll post about me? Yes, I could. Does it mean you can get me that kind of reach? Absolutely, I do it every day. Right? Like
Yeah,
these conversations, and then you
absolutely.
quickly get into budget, timeline. Oh, I want to book you in February. Oh, I'm not going to be available, but I wish you all the best.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
and so you learn your sales cycle. You learn your unique selling proposition. You learn your archetypical buyer, and you just give them what they want. And and I think we're going to get like way more technical and pedantic and into some of the stuff that very few people know, let alone talk about on LinkedIn in a minute. But just to give kind of my overall philosophy on LinkedIn, I think 95% of people use it wrong, and that's because 95% of what I and everyone sees in their news feed follows the same formula. Someone whose profile is written like it's a resume, posts every single day, and they start their post off by saying, "Hey, let me teach you something I know that you don't know." And then they go quickly into, so if you spend your money with me and hire me, or pay my company X dollars, then you can get this result. And it's so funny to me that everyone keeps trying this over and over and over, year after year after year, not getting results, saying LinkedIn doesn't work. And it's, first of all, condescending to show up in front of a billion people and say, "Hey, I know something you don't know, and if you only do it, your
Right.
life would be better." Right? And unless you're like Tony Robbins with 10 million people hanging on your every word, that's a really precarious position to put yourself in front of a billion potential opportunities that are almost all strangers. But people do it
Absolutely.
every day, right? And here's the crazy thing: no one goes to LinkedIn to buy anything, and no one goes to LinkedIn to learn.
I'm gonna
Everyone
I'm
on
gonna
LinkedIn,
jump I'm going to jump in because I just want to come back because you're giving so many good nuggets, and I want to make sure that our listeners are actually being able to capture these. I mean, the first thing you said, which I love, which is you want to follow the law of reciprocity, right? Where an equal exchange where you're giving as well as receiving, and I think that's a really important point too. And it's exactly what you're talking about right now. If I go there only with the intention of receiving, I'm going to put my ad up on that news feed, and you're going to come and give me your money because I'm clearly the only person you'd want to hire. That's an unfair way to treat this community that's giving you their time. And so the give to get, that idea of like, this is a value for value, and value isn't, I'm going to give you, you're going to give me your money and I'm going to give you my time. That goes further down the chain because I don't even know you, quite frankly. And so that law of reciprocity is, let's get to know each other first, and let's see if there might be an opportunity for a value for value exchange. So that was, I think, one of the first things that you and I talked about. And at the time, I wasn't even really working on LinkedIn. I barely ever posted. And so that was an important differentiation, and understanding that the news feed is not the place to be doing that kind of work. The news feed is a place of getting to know each other. And then understanding, this was the next thing you talked about, was that optimization of the profile. How do you create a profile that actually works hard for you? And I remember you really like getting me to, I remember you and I sort of working together, and you're like, okay, show me your picture. Nope, make it bigger. Nope, center it this way. We don't need to see your pretty jewelry. Like you were really clear on what you wanted that image to be. Why? And you said it here today, which is, that is what shows up in everybody's newsfeed every time I like or comment or share something. And that's so important, along with that ever present headline, which actually tells people what I do. Not that I'm the CEO and founder of Talk Boutique. Well, it's interesting, but who cares, quite frankly? because what's that doing for anyone else? So that headline, really, really important. And then you talked about that button, that little blue link that says, hey, we can actually work together. So seeing my profile like a landing page was so important, because that's what it is. So I can sell on my profile, because if somebody's on my profile, that means they actually want to know more about me. But I'm not selling in my news feed, because that's where we're actually, just getting to know each other. And I remember you saying to me at one point, it's like if I were to walk up to you in a restaurant, you're sitting at a table, and I just walk up to you and go, hey, I'm the best at what I do, buy my services. You'd probably be like, who the hell are you? And go away. And instead, if I walked up and introduced myself and, talked about, interested me about why I wanted to get to know you, what's a whole different conversation. And I think that was so powerful for me. And I actually, in my own mind, every time I'm writing a post, I still have that in my mind. I always think about it. It's like, am I walking up trying to, talk at them, or am I walking up and trying to start a conversation because I actually think that person is interesting. Um, sorry. And then you talked about the follower base. What does a follower base mean? What it means is the number of impressions, the ways in which you're actually being amplified, and that's powerful. And that way of being amplified goes far beyond that followership, because people are sharing, people are that number of people who actually follow you is only a fraction of the people who are seeing you when you're working with the algorithm correctly. And when you are not trying to speak at people instead of speaking with people. So I'll hand it back to you now, because I think that those are really, really powerful points. So as you look at the algorithm today, look at LinkedIn, and you and I have had some conversations on this, and people are, like social media, regardless of what platform you're on, we're all subject to the algorithms that those social media platforms use. And I know that LinkedIn's platform, their algorithm is different. And I remember learning from you so many little nuances in the algorithm, but equally as important. And I've heard this, and I'd love to hear your take on it, is that the algorithm itself changes often, and it's often looked at by humans as opposed to just algorithmically applied to the newsfeed. So love to hear your thoughts on the LinkedIn algorithm.
Perfect, and thank you. I want to take 10 steps back and unpack so much, but I won't do it. I'm just going to kind of lay one little gem to bear on the table, and then I'll hop right into what you said. But the best place to engage with people on LinkedIn is to use it like a search engine and find people who are talking about the stuff that your customers are talking about and engage with them. Second and third connections that have never heard of you before. And that's the way you truly, make sure you hit every table in the restaurant, or every uh, group of people at the networking event, and that can change the game for LinkedIn. But so now let's talk changing algorithm, and I'm going to have to get a little bit. I'm going to take it a little bit back and tell a story that's not very pleasant, but to really articulate my point, which is the algorithm hasn't changed much. And I will kind of open the kimono and say LinkedIn's about to change hugely. They're creating their own artificial intelligence. They're building their own small large language model. They're doing it with no tarnished data. Everything will be proprietary and come from the user base that have been verified and validated. And so there are some big changes fundamentally that are already being rolled out, deployed, tested, retested at LinkedIn. And I'd like to go into that in a moment. But before I do that, I just want to kind of put my perspective on the table as far as the algorithm changes. There aren't algorithm changes. And people that do great for 6 months and stop doing great love to say, I'm being shadow banned, or the algorithm changed and now I'm not getting, and almost never is that the case. The algorithm doesn't really change much. I had a new client that sent me an infographic the other day that had LinkedIn's logo on it. It looked very official, and it said, algorithm update. influencers with over 100,000 followers are going to start to get way less views, and people with under 10,000 followers are going to start to get way more views. And she's like, Cory, how has this impacted you? I said, well, let me check my stats. I got 3.2 million views this week. I got 2.8 million views last week, and those are both slightly high for me. So, and I have well over 100,000 followers. So in my world, that's not the case. Right now, are some people with six-figure followers seeing way lower view count? Probably. Right, they're either probably resting on their laurels or doing the same thing that they've been doing for years, or they keep posting at the same time that's worked for a year and gone, well, wait a minute, I'm posting at my same time. Yeah, but if a percentage of the billion users started posting at the same time, now you're not in the blue ocean anymore, you're in the red ocean. And so the conversation that I had, and I'll simply leave it as this was a very early executive at LinkedIn. I'll just leave it at that. And I were talking about LinkedIn some years ago, and I said something that I've been researching and that I really didn't like, and that this is where it kind of, this might even ruffle some feathers, but I said, in my tests, I have found that the LinkedIn algorithm is racist. I said, all I can do is call it out for what it is. I see specifically people of color and even African Americans, to be more specific, who have similar titles, have had similar careers, that have arguably better content, that are getting very little to no engagement. And I've even done stuff like written their posts for them, and it does way worse than it would have for me. And you get a bunch of big time influencers to engage with them immediately. And so I said, I've got all this data that suggests that it's much harder to get visibility and traction on LinkedIn if you're a person of color, and to a much lesser degree, even if you're a woman, regardless of any of that. And the guy literally, he said, first of all, Cory, he said, or they said, this person said, first of all, I hate to admit that you're right. He said, but you're right. He said, now, I can tell you, when we built the algorithm and when we were building this platform, that was not ever a consideration. And this person themselves is not white, right? So, right, he was like, we really did not build this. He said, but with machine learning, there's always natural biases. And
Yeah.
the primary user base in the first few years was all middle-aged, successful white men. And they invited all of their friends, and so their stuff trained the algorithm, right? He said, so all these years later, there are still biases. And he said, we literally have tried to build in code to counter the fact that, he said, but at a certain point, some of these things that have been trained over millions, and in some cases even billions of data points, this is something that time will correct. And he said, and now I'm paraphrasing, but basically it's not as racist now as it used to be, right? And for what it is, and I don't even mean to laugh. That's probably out of nervousness, but like, that's the unfortunate truth, that it was not programmed to be any kind of way.
Do you think
But
has it gotten any better though? Like, over time, do you think it's like, is it, marginally? And I want to take, and sorry to interrupt you, but I want to also go, did LinkedIn, because I've heard this and I don't know if it's true, also institute human oversight to the algorithm so that so that they can start to equalize that a little bit, and that it starts to give preference to people of color and women and minorities who haven't had that.
So on the one hand, ever since they've really gone all in to be a professional social media site, which wasn't always the case. It used to just be a Rolodex to see who your next call
Yeah.
was and where they went to college and if you knew anybody in common. But ever since they've been a social media site with a news feed and accepting different forms of media, there's been a human element. And so
Yeah.
I think I taught you this, but it may be blurry, or maybe I didn't do a good enough job since you were one of the first people I worked with. But there are 3 rings of engagement, and this is official through LinkedIn. And so when you post, it will definitely, every time anyone posts ever, go into the first ring of engagement. And this is just algorithmic. This is computer science. There's no person looking at it, and it will say, this is what it's about, this is who it's from, this is who's online, this is who else is talking about this right now, for better or for worse. Let's show it to X number of people in X industries and X parts of the world. and they'll show it to a small sample size, and algorithmically, it will believe that it knows about how that post will do. So, okay, this is an American man talking about AI at 5 p.m. Eastern, and 20 other people are talking about it right now, and there's not much original here, and he's talking at his audience, and there's a link to a website that's not LinkedIn. Let's show it to 300 people, and I bet less than 10 of them like the post. And so if they show it to 300 people and 100 people like it, then it's going to go to the second ring of engagement. But if it shows it to 300 people and 3 people like it, it goes, yeah, see, we were right, nobody cares. And that's about it. It might only get a couple hundred more views, period. But so you learn the algorithm, you learn the psychology of the platform, you learn the right times to post where enough people are going to like what you've got to say and the way that you're saying it, and the algorithm knows it. Well, now if a post, the algorithm says, hey, this is good, people are going to like this, so it shows it now instead of to 300, maybe it shows it to 3,000 people. And of those 3,000 people, maybe 50 of them like it, and the algorithm goes, okay, that's solid, right? Obviously some people are busy and some people keep scrolling, but we showed it to a bunch of people and a bunch of people liked it. Now let's show it to 10,000. That's when it sends it to a real person. That's the second ring of engagement. And now their job is to basically look at the different categories. Are these all first connections, second connections? Are they all in a certain part of the world or a certain industry? How engaging is this post? How many times have we seen the same kind of thing from other people recently, right? And so this is a real person, and I do not have authority to say that I do or do not know if those people have been told to
Right.
prioritize posts of right, different demographics. I will say I know some people who probably are in some of the senior conversations around that, and I haven't heard that that's the case specifically. But what I have noticed, and which I really love, is that LinkedIn is doing a really good job of kind of promoting a lot of their own employees algorithmically. So making sure they go viral, and a lot of these are women, a lot of them are people of color, a lot of these are identify on different places on different spectrums, and so all of a sudden giving those people a platform and a following and training the algorithm a bit, that this is someone that you should show their stuff to a bunch of people, does seem to be at least somewhat reshaping the experience, and I do anticipate that'll ramp up substantially.
I think that's important, right? Regardless of how it affects me, I think it's important that any social media platform, and certainly LinkedIn, because of the influence it has in business, that it actually that it does start to prioritize some of these minorities or unheard voices, quite frankly. And I think that we do need that. So I'm glad to hear that that's probably something, whether we know it for sure, but anyone from LinkedIn is here. Let's make sure, let's hope that they're listening to that, as much as, of course, I want my post to go viral, you want your post to go viral. These are ways in which it helps us. But the reality is there's a bigger picture that we both know we're a part of. And it's important that bigger picture be looked at.
Well, and for what it's worth, and for anybody watching this, I've got, thank God, a few people in this last week have hired me as their coach. At the end of the year, it can be slow for weak coaches, but they came to me through some of my lowest posts, posts that didn't even get 10,000 views. Which for me, I don't know that I went all year with a post with less than some tens of thousands of views. But two of those posts that were both at least a little bit under that threshold, brought people to me that said, hey, I love your work, I'd like to talk about working together, got on the call, and they hired me. And so ultimately, I would rather a post make me $5,000 and get 5,000 likes. Now, it's great when you can have a balance of both, and I'm almost in the business of selling that I can go viral. So sometimes it's the person saw my post with 5,000 likes that then sees the one with 200 likes and decides to hire me then. So right, it is a visibility thing, and
Right.
there are a number of touch points. But it's really interesting. I think, do you want to shift gears into where I think LinkedIn is going?
Yeah, I would. And I'm noticing the time. And so, I'm okay to stay if you're okay to stay for a little bit longer.
So it's three. Uh, The only problem with StreamYard is I can't check my calendar, and I don't know. I think I
Yeah.
had a call that was supposed to start right now, but maybe we could just do a little teaser.
Just like maybe do
Um,
5 minutes and then we'll close it off. Because I mean,
yeah,
I would
so
love to hear just a couple of maybe teasers to get people interested, and maybe we can talk about how they can work with you a little bit.
perfect. And I did just hear something in my ear that tells me I should be on that other call, but so we'll go quick. When I mentioned that LinkedIn is working on their own AI, they're also working on the future of work. And it's very important to look at it through the lens of LinkedIn is a wholly owned subsidiary of Microsoft. Microsoft bought LinkedIn from Reid Hoffman and Eric Lee for $36 billion, some time ago, well over a decade ago. But so LinkedIn is Microsoft. Microsoft tried to hire Greg Brockman and Sam Altman for an undisclosed uh, buyer's market deal when OpenAI thought they were going to get rid of them for a little bit, or when they thought they'd get rid of Sam. Um, OpenAI, who's the maker of ChatGPT, has what's called Q Star, which is going to be, kind of part of the foundation of their next version, ChatGPT 5. It's rumored to already be getting close to at least being tested in some beta groups. And so OpenAI received not all of yet, but a $30 billion commitment from Microsoft. Microsoft was happy to give Sam Altman and Greg Brockman back to OpenAI, but then publicly said this strengthens their partnership. So if we look at LinkedIn as a social media networking site for professionals with 1 billion verified users, that's developing their own proprietary model of AI that's only trained on professionals, getting into the future of work, right? And then we look at the fact that they are effectively a property of Microsoft and OpenAI. OpenAI also just tried to merge with Anthropic, although that didn't work. But now we can start to see we're having a networking site for professionals with AI that is not trained on billions of data points that could be wrong or corrupted or otherwise paid for, becomes hugely powerful. So although I could talk about this for hours and I could talk to you for hours, Andrea, I think this is probably a good point to wrap up.
Yeah.
But I hope everybody that tuned in had a great time.
Yeah, thank you, Cory. I always learn so much every time we talk, and I so, so, so appreciate you. Cory is a LinkedIn coach, but he's also our newest coach in the Thought Leader Academy. And, Cory will be showing up inside the Thought Leader Academy on a regular basis. And so if you're not a member of the Thought Leader Academy, now is the time to join. We've got a end of year special going on. Get $400 off if you join before the end of this year, and you will be working with Cory, and that is amazing. We've got not only him live, but we have some of his own training that he um, gives out, but actually for a lot of money. And so he has been kind enough, because he is a very kind person, to allow us to host it on the Thought Leader Academy. And, we've got a couple of sessions coming up. We've got, Cory is going to sign off. So
Bye,
thank you.
everyone.
We'll talk
Bye for
soon.
now.
Um, We've got a couple of new sessions coming up. Next week, we're live with Laura Beauprelant, who will be talking to us about building your personal brand. And on December the 6th, I'm conducting a session with all of our new members on building your core idea. Cory will join us live in the new year. We're really excited to have his first session. So make sure that you join, get $400 off. And in terms of Cory, make sure that you are following him. We will put his profile link in the show notes on this down below. So make sure that you check that out. Follow him, and if you want to connect in with him, make sure you click on the link in his profile, and he'll get back to you. Thank you all. I know we went a little bit over. I appreciate you staying, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you so much, and have a beautiful rest of your day.